Hey guys, I'm just dropping in to say that this is going to be a little bit different of a video today. I'm actually reviewing a laser cutter that I just got and talking about how it's been great for a lot of the things that I do. Very soon on the channel, I'll show some projects that I get to utilize the laser cutter for and hopefully have some fun with it. So stay tuned. This is the Creality Falcon 2. I know I've talked about laser cutters a few times on this channel and even showed one a number of videos back that I was using at home. That was the same type of laser, a diode laser, but it was a less powerful one. So this one is 40 watts of laser power. That means it has multiple laser diodes that are all converging at one point to create 40 watts of energy. And that's a lot more. Actually, I think it's the most that a laser diode has right now on the market. So it means it can cut and engrave things very quickly and thicker materials than I was able to before. It also came very much assembled already. I'll show you a few clips of what it looked like to put it together, but it was basically screwing on these little feet, plugging in a couple cables and tubes, and we're done. Other lasers that I've gotten in the past have had to be assembled, all of the frame and everything put together, and it just took a little longer, and there was a little more margin of error in terms of getting things to be square and all that. This unit came very much assembled. You had to put the laser unit on, plug in a couple things, and you're off to go laser cut. It also came with this little thing that allows you to easily focus the laser to do different depth of cuts and materials. Very simple to set up. And this kit does come with an air assist built in. It's not an add-on. So all you had to do is plug in the air tube and the power cable for it, and everything will be controlled from the main unit now that the air assist is plugged in. And you really do need air assist for this unit because I'm going to be doing thicker, slower cuts with it, and otherwise, without air assist, there would be flames popping up and fires would start. So air assist just helps to eliminate the flame and keep the cutting surface a lot more clean. It also came with the laser protective glasses that you'll definitely need if you're going to be looking at this thing as it's working. It's got an emergency stop button that is easily engaged if there's any problems. And you can use a micro SD card or plug it into a computer to be used by a software. Now the other big thing for me with these home lasers is that they come like this with an open frame, and so you need to run them in a very well ventilated area or outside. So when I talked to Creality about reviewing this unit, I asked if they could send me an enclosure for it, so that way I could have it in my basement studio and vent all the fumes out of a window or a wall vent, and be able to get my laser work done while it's raining or whatever outside, and to be able to keep this set up and ready to go so it'll be much easier. In the past, I found myself going to my local makerspace to use their larger machines that are indoors more often than the hassle of setting up my machine outside. So I think this enclosure is going to be awesome for me in terms of workflow and just ease of use. And they also did send me the honeycomb work table, which I've used on other lasers in the past and really helps when you're doing deeper cuts, just to keep your material clean and not to destroy the surface underneath as much. So let's get this all set up with the enclosure and the honeycomb table and turn it on for the first time, and I'll walk you through basically how this type of thing works. So this is what it looks like on the inside when it's all put together with the enclosure. I'm going to just start trying to cut 1/4 inch MDF, which is a material I use all the time, and this thing cut through it like butter. As you can see, it cut really clean all the way through the 1/4 inch MDF. And then I took, I think, a 1/16 inch MDF and cut out these two designs. You might recognize them from the earlier video. It was that Gothic window I got from Etsy. I was able to cut this much quicker because of the thinner material, and I think it came out awesome. So what is the advantage of a machine like this over something like the Glowforge or some of these other bigger machines that are CO2 laser based that you also see in a lot of home studios and workshops? A couple of things that I love about the diode lasers is, number one, you don't have to worry about the big CO2 glass tube. You have to replace those after a while in the CO2 machines. They're not very cheap. And then you also have to worry about the calibration between all of the mirrors. So on a CO2 machine, the laser beam comes out of the glass tube and hits a number of mirrors to get to where it needs to go. And some of those mirrors are on the moving platform, and over time they get dirty, they get misaligned, and there's a whole process of trying to align them perfectly to come down to that one point. You You also have a lens in there, some other things that you just have to routinely clean and make sure they're working properly. With the diode machine, you don't have a laser going across the air against mirrors to get to where it's going. The laser is produced right in that laser head directly above. You can also easily change out the laser module if that company comes out with a more powerful one later down the road, let's say, or a different one. Some of these companies have different types of laser heads that you can kind of swap in and out so you can get more use out of the machine. And honestly, it's somewhat of a smaller footprint than those larger CO2 machines, and right now, at least, a lower cost. The CO2 machines that are worth getting into are a few $1,000s. If you look at the Glowforge, I know there are some cheaper brands now, but they're still a little more of an investment. It's a larger machine, and you have to think about the maintenance down the road in terms of replacing that CO2 tube at some point. Also, with a laser like this, it allows you to use light burn right off the bat, and so you can use pretty much the industry standard software. You don't have to worry about using a proprietary software. I know Glowforge, for example, you have to be connected to the internet and their servers to be able to use your laser at all. And so this is a really big benefit of something like this, where it just works with good software and even an SD card directly, and you don't have to worry about incompatibilities or using someone's specific software. So now a couple things that I actually really like about this specific machine, the Creality Falcon 2. Obviously, I like that it's a 40-watt laser power. It's really powerful. You saw how cleanly it cut my 1/4" MDF. Yes, it'll be a little slower than an industrial machine that might have a laser tube that's 155 watts or greater of power. But now we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars and a much bigger machine. And so to have this in my workshop and to be able to cut the materials that I routinely need, it's actually a really great machine. There's also a few other just quality of life things. So previously, some of the diode lasers that I've used didn't have any kind of limit switches at the boundaries of its area, which means if the software told it to go outside of its workable area, it would just end up crashing at the end and kind of grinding the gears and stuff. And that never sounded good. I'm sure it wasn't good for the machine overall, but also it kind of got the calibration of where the laser head was on your piece completely off. The Falcon 2 has limit switches at the edges, which means if it does go to one of the edges and needs to go past it according to the software, it'll hit that limit switch and realize it's at the end and stop that movement. And so if you home it, which is just the process of it going to its 0 point, it'll know exactly where it is from the point you home it, and then anywhere else, it'll stay in that calibration because of the limit switches. It also has the air assist that comes with the kit. You don't have to get that separately, and even has the adjustment knob right built into the machine. And there's no external screens or things that you have to worry about. Some people might not like that. I kind of do, because I'm using my Lightburn software for the most part. All I need is the basic toggle controls to toggle where the position of the laser head is, and then use my software in Lightburn to control everything else. It's also a pretty easy machine to understand when you're first getting started. Just some tutorial videos, if you are a little confused with the directions or something, will get you going, and you can easily get started on a fairly safe machine. Obviously, you need to think about the safety considerations when using a laser cutter like this. It can obviously set a fire and burn your house down if you're not being careful with it. So of course, have a fire extinguisher around. Never set a laser job to run and then walk away and not monitor it. And make sure you have things working like the air assist, and that'll keep the chances of flames and a fire to start to a minimum. I do think this machine has a great build quality and finish to it as well. It looks great. It's performed very well for me so far. So if you're looking at different machines, that's a big plus for this one as well. And obviously, because this company does have a specific enclosure for it that works, it comes with an exhaust fan and everything for you, is a big plus if you are in a space like I am, where you can't really be outside and you can't ventilate your space. You need to exhaust the smoke out your window or whatever. It's all built in to that enclosure, which I think is pretty affordable as well at under $100. The other really cool thing is you can turn off half of the laser diodes. This makes it a much tighter laser beam for a more precise engraving, if that's what you're looking for. So I think this machine is, in my opinion, one of the best ones to get started in. I know it's more money than some of the real budget machines, but that extra power and some of these quality of life features are a pretty big thing to me. You'll be able to scale what you're doing. You'll be able to cut thinner materials much faster and engrave faster with this more powerful laser. And of course, if you're doing something like trying to engrave things on pieces of paper, this one might be more difficult because it's a very powerful laser. But if you're mostly cutting wood, acrylic, thicker materials at all, you can even do some crazy color engraving on things like stainless steel with this thing. The variety of what you can do is huge, and so you can scale what you're doing down the road, and I'm sure that they will even make more powerful laser modules available in the future that is as easy as unplugging and loosening some screws and removing this laser module to upgrade to another one. So yes, even though they sent me this unit for free, I can say that I would absolutely get this unit on my own because it's fitting exactly what I needed. I no longer have to run down to my makerspace if I want to do a quick laser cut. I can iterate a little easier that way with my projects instead of going back and forth. And it has the power to cut through these materials that I'm constantly using without having to do multiple passes and waiting forever and it charring the wood like crazy. It's really a clean cut and it's not slow at all, especially for being this small home machine. And for somebody that's trying to create a lot of projects so that I can share them on YouTube more often, technology like this is huge for me. It allows me to speed up my production time. It allows me to be more creative in ways where I can think of more intricate designs and throw things together in a way that would take me so much longer if I tried to do it by hand. But I also can get exact cuts out of this. I can get very realistic looking things because it's done by a machine once you've created the designs for it. Doing everything by hand, no matter how good you are, there's going to be some kind of a little subtle feel to it that isn't quite realistic. And when I'm trying to make things to look realistic on camera, tools like 3D printers and laser cutters have been huge for me and allowed me to be more creative and more quantity as well than I could otherwise. I know a lot of people will think, well, I just don't have the money for something like that. And I get it. I started somewhere too, and I certainly had no money for a laser cutter for a long time. And truly up until now that I have this machine, I relied on my local makerspace a lot for laser cut projects. Even though I had a smaller laser cutter before, it was not convenient for me to use. But a monthly membership to a makerspace allowed me access to laser cutters, to a woodworking shop, all kinds of different tools, and other people that were skilled and knowledgeable in those tools. And so you can kind of get some education and get your foot into some of these things without having to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on tools right away. But at the end of the day, hobbies are expensive. If you get into woodworking, a good table saw is going to cost the same as a laser cutter. If you're into fishing, I'm pretty sure after a few years of fishing and multiple rods and lures and all that kind of stuff, you can add up to hundreds of dollars with that as well. So all I'm saying is you don't need this tool to get started. But if you're trying to get your craft to a different level, if you're trying to explore different things, if you are trying to get a very particular realistic look, this might be something that you'd be really interested in. And of course, you can make Christmas presents for people. You can laser cut your custom designs onto coasters and plaques and whatever. You can do so many things outside of miniatures with it, but it opens up possibilities that you couldn't do before. And if you are on a budget right now, try to find a makerspace in your area that might have one. But keeping your mind open to these different ideas and possibilities and the creativity that can go into using new tools is always good. And I think it's when we get too comfortable and stay working in just the tools and materials that we're used to is when we start to become less creative. I know it's harder to do new things, it's harder to do new ideas, but that's when our creativity comes out and makes us a more well-rounded artist in general. So I would definitely encourage you to look into laser cutting, look into different things all around it, and if you're interested in a machine, the Creality Falcon 2 has been really cool for me as I've been trying it out, and I'll be showing it more on the channel as I go so you can see how it fares when I'm using it in real projects.